What's the most hypocritical thing you've witnessed? I was having a hard time getting a job after college. My step-grandmother called me every single name in the book, every variation of deadbeat dependent loser you can possibly think of, almost every single time I saw her. No self-discipline, no drive, too dependent on others. I can't believe you can't get a job. I taught my daughters how to work. You're definitely your mother's child. I had expectations for my own kids. All I knew is I had to work. This is the same person who never had a job in her life, wasn't able to collect her own social security since she never paid into it, and was 100% dependent on my grandpa. Way to call the kettle black. It got so bad, I had to stop talking to her altogether since each convo would just be putting me down. If I were you, I wouldn't even call her. There was a girl in one of my classes that spent the entire class on Facebook every single day. During a presentation she was giving one day, someone noticeably checked their email. We all saw, but we all also knew that she was on Facebook every single day for the entire class. That's why we were all very surprised when she stopped the presentation to scream at this person for being rude and disrespectful and then stormed out. Honestly, she probably just needed a way to get out of the presentation and jumped at the opportunity. My ex-wife, shortly after we separated, told me if I started seeing someone that she would want to meet them before our kids did, which makes perfect sense. 2 months later, the guy she had an affair with moved from NC to FL and in with her and my 2 kids. I still haven't met him and it's been 6 months. What the frick, dude, I'm sorry. I've noticed that pretty much any time someone uses the phrase "if you don't like it, leave," it only applies to other people. That person will have no problem complaining endlessly and not leaving. If you don't like it, leave. Translation: I can't handle criticism, so I will deflect any attempt to criticize me by telling the critic to just leave and stop criticizing me. Someone from work just got back from a holiday visiting family who live out of the continent. Went from the nightclubs pretended to be closed but were open for anyone that knew. Had so much fun finally going out for a drink. I can't believe how bad COVID is here and so many people aren't following the rules. It's infuriating. Real freaking quick. Ex would get mad at me for having guy acquaintances, not even friends really, just from classes or work, and policed my phone and life, and the sucker was cheating on me. 2. Perfect example. When I was in college, there was a super immature guy that I believe only got into our private school because his parents had money. One day we were sitting in his dorm room watching TV, and he speaks up. "God, don't you just hate people who steal things for no reason?" The rest of us turned and stared in disbelief. Behind him on a shelf was a collection of all the things he'd stolen from businesses. I remember Red Robin seasoning and bowling shoes, but there was a lot more. A glimmer of self-awareness pierced through his thick skull and he backtracked somewhat. I mean, for me, it's like my thing, but still. IG stories. Lately, a post saying crap like "don't forget to wear a mask, we're all in this together, stay safe everyone," followed by a series of videos taken inside of a crowded club, bumping and grinding up on each other, not a mask in sight. It's lit, fam. We're all in this together. Me on my private island with friends and a team of servants. I suffer just as hard as you in your studio apartment scrounging for next month's rent. My friends who be about people who break lockdown, then go on to break lockdown for sleepovers and girly nights the same day they were criticizing others. Infuriatingly entitled. Others must follow the rules but they don't apply to me. My mom got very angered that our governor was allowing people to have family over for Thanksgiving and not doing his part to stop the pandemic. A week later, she was very upset about how my grandma had declined her invitation to come have Thanksgiving with us. This exact crap has been the biggest thing that's bugged me with my mom since the pandemic started. She constantly flips between being worried about pandemic stuff and bitching about things being closed and having to wear masks. It's insane. Like, are you concerned about your health or not, bro? I worked for a small company that hated giving out raises. The owners pulled a neat trick where they sold the company to itself. Then they became board members. As soon as they weren't responsible for the revenue, after all they got the money for the sale, we were getting berated for everyone having a low salary. It was like, you set our prices and the salaries as of last month. We don't have any funds because you sold the business to itself and we need to pay that note. He was right and we worked on fixing it. But suddenly being blindsided due to being in the position he created drove me nuts. I work in a courthouse. People who abuse children for years and years, and when they get on the stand they break down crying and plead for mercy. When I was going through my college party phase, I ended up hanging with kids who graduated from a local Christian school. They drank, did drugs, and bragged about premarital sex like a lot of college students. When you talked about politics though, they immediately would go on and on about the moral failings of society and how it needs to be more Christian, yada yada. Just my dad in general. Here's some highlights. As a child, he'd often tell me I had to think for myself, but then he'd beat me if I said things he disagreed with. Sometimes, he'd pose questions to me, and then hit me until I guessed the chain of logical jumps that led to the conclusion he was looking for. He once went on a 4-hour rant about how my generation are all dirty communists and Muslims are all terrorists and a big gay conspiracy and other such nonsense. I couldn't get a word in edgewise, but he had the gall to end with, "I'd be willing to change my mind if anybody were willing to have a discussion with me, but nobody's willing to talk with me." When Trump got elected and people were complaining about it, his response was, "How dare they question the president? That's disrespectful to the office." A month earlier, he was still aboard the Obama birther train. These days, he thinks Biden stole the election. In high school, he sometimes made fun of me for being a creature of habit. He's had the same routine, worn identical outfits, and eaten the same lunch every day for the past 20+ years at least. I didn't have much say in my routine back then anyway. School ate up most of my time, and it's not like my parents allowed me to get together with my friends. Similarly, he'd make fun of me for not having friends. I did have friends, but to him they didn't count because he'd never met them, because he never allowed them to visit, because he'd never met them. He has one friend that he sees outside of work once a year, and oftentimes not even that. Your dad is a sad man who was clearly never equipped with the tools needed to find any modicum of self-respect or happiness in life. My wife's dad was like that a bit, too. Very hypocritical. But man, he was just a sad guy who was the way he was and had no clue how to even go about starting to change. My mother crying over sex trafficking victims in other countries while ignoring me telling her when someone was touching me inappropriately and begging my brother to ask for a lighter sentence for the bastard who sexually assaulted him because he's a man of God. Sorry bro, but your mom's a piece of crap. Hope you and your brother are doing well, and I wish you two the best. In Alberta, Canada, our government, rightfully, put in place very strict social distancing rules over the Christmas holidays. Everyone had to stay home. You couldn't see anyone outside your household. Our hospitals' ICUs were full. Tons of businesses were closed. Many government officials traveled outside of the country to places like Mexico, Hawaii and Europe. Some of them to meet extended family members for a holiday. One of them tried to defend their actions by saying that it's a 17-year tradition for us to go to Hawaii for Christmas. Astounding. Please tell me Albertans are keeping a list of the politicians to vote out of office. Televangelists preaching how we should live modestly while they own several private jets to fly around the country spreading the word of the Lord. Sometimes they'll come on TV saying God came to them in a dream saying they needed more. Jesus would fly coach if he flew at all. I believe Jesus also preached about taking in the displaced, etc. If I recall correctly, in 2017 Joel Osteen was not allowing hurricane evacuees into his megachurch. Televangelists preaching how we should live modestly while they own several private jets to fly around the country spreading the word of the Lord. One even went so far as to say flying commercial meant traveling with demons, aka folks just like his own followers. I've been repeatedly sexually harassed by a gay man before and have even had to make sure he didn't find out where I live so he couldn't keep doing it. When I explained this one time to my co-workers, one sneered and said I was just being homophobic and assuming it was harassment. I said the man has repeatedly attempted to convince me to sleep with him despite my refusals, attempted to find my home, and once tried to trap me in a public restroom to make sure he couldn't lose track of me. If I was a woman in this situation, would my co-worker even think of telling me that I was overreacting? Fortunately, the rest of my crew supported me and tell him it was hypocritical to assume sexual harassment can only happen to women. My friend is in the middle of getting a restraining order against a gay man like this. Everyone around my friend is saying he's overreacting. But when you are almost raped and harassed every time you go to the bar, there is a problem. My company said that money is too tight right now for promotions or raises. A couple of weeks later, a manager that is close friends with HR and the CFO got promoted to director along with a nice raise. All this while he was working from home and not doing anything. Would take hours to respond to emails. A chick who posted about how she doesn't eat beef because she loves cows, the next day posted a photo of her new designer leather handbag. There's a chance she's just really stupid, if that makes you feel better. My mother praised herself as a devout pious Catholic. She would curse when opening bills. Well, Jesus. Hydro bill $50, goddamn you. She beat me once for asking for $5 to buy a WWF wrestling magazine, and while she smacked me about, she raged about that goddamn frickin' violence. She praised herself as a devout pious Catholic. Problem number 1. I know someone who won't take any vaccines because she doesn't want the mercury and who knows whatever else is in there in her body, yet eats fish and has unprotected sex with strangers from the internet. Gavin Newsom telling Californians to stay home, then proceed to go out to eat with multiple people at an astronomically priced restaurant. I was having a good morning. My cousin came to visit my family on Mother's Day last year. She traveled across 3 states to see us, and then while she was here she was posting things on her Facebook about how inconsiderate and stupid it is to travel anywhere during that time. A girl I go to school with claims she's the poorest girl in the whole town, yet goes on and on about how each of her siblings got their own laptop and she recently got a car for her birthday. So I guess y'all are super rich now. Girls who pick on other girls and then share anti-bullying posts on Facebook. I was relentlessly picked on by 2 particular girls in my then workplace, and then they would both harp on about how awful bullying was on Facebook. It's like they had these other faces for everyone else. It wasn't long before the mask slipped though, and everyone ended up seeing their true colors. They used to be best friends too, but now they hate each other, mostly because they fell out trying to blame the other one for all the bullying and bitchiness that took place in the end, and not just towards me. So yeah, it worked out pretty well in the end. I worked in retail a long time and I got tired of management bending over backwards to anyone who thought they could rig the system by basically being Karens, kicking up a fuss and being verbally abusive towards anyone who tried to stop them getting their own way. I would outright refuse to serve them and ask them to leave, and being a supervisor, I was well within my right to do so. I didn't like my staff being verbally or racially abused just for trying to do their jobs, but as soon as they asked for upper management, they would always come out and start fawning over the customer, with apologies and I'm so sorry, and would give them whatever they wanted. I couldn't get my head around it. Companies claimed to support their staff and their teams with whatever decision they made, but that all went away as soon as these Karens started their "I'll take my custom elsewhere" threats. The hypocrisy was astounding at times. I worked for a veterinarian back when I was in college. On a couple of different occasions people brought in animals that had seemingly, to me, obvious problems, but he would insist on doing blood work and x-rays and other extras. Not really running up the bill per se, but as an animal rescuer who could only afford the essentials, I felt it was necessary to ask him about it. His explanation was that even if it cost a lot more, his thoroughness made him more money and it would be mad if he missed something. And people who aren't willing to take off every issue an animal has shouldn't own animals. A few months later he took his older truck to get something fixed. The auto shop told him while he was there that the truck needed this fixed and that fixed and etc etc. He was absolutely livid. What did they think? That he was made of money? They didn't charge him extra, just told him what all needed fixed. And yeah, an animal is different than a truck, but a person, say an elderly person on a fixed income, who wants to get this lump on Fluffy checked out, doesn't need to hear that they are basically a bad pet owner if they can't afford scheduled teeth cleanings and all the extras. Needless to say, he didn't appreciate my comparison of his methods to the auto shop's methods. People who quote the Bible as their reason to hate gays, but have tattoos. Tattoos are specifically prohibited by the direct word of God to Moses. It's on the same page as the part about gays. My pops is a MAGA guy and hates illegal immigrants. He was once deported from the US from entering illegally as an immigrant. As a type 1 diabetic that is capable of eating anything a normal person is as long as I take the appropriate amount of insulin to adjust, it makes me livid when people say you probably shouldn't eat that to my second slice of pizza, and they then proceed to shotgun a 3-tier wedding cake. Oh man, now I feel like an butt. A friend at work is type 1. I didn't know how it all works, so I have asked her a few times about eating habits, and when she switched third to first I asked if that messed anything up. Just to clarify, I never told her she shouldn't eat something. I just asked if it messed with her sugars and kinda asked her to explain it to me. Climate change advocates flying to climate change conferences on private jets. 1. Yes, climate change is real. That's why this is not just hypocritical, but truly offensive. 2. These people exist. Some of them are lovely and well-intentioned. I know some of them. It still fits the question. 3. This does not invalidate wanting to mitigate climate change. Hypocrisy is a weak noodle to assault anything. It says nothing about the issues, only about the consistency of the hypocrite. Americans revolting against the British because no taxation without representation, but going on to create the largest taxation without representation system in the world via dual citizenship. Our school always been saying that self-defense is completely fine as long as there's evidence that you fought in self-defense. Well, once I fought in self-defense, and maybe cause the kid was well liked by the teachers and I was a crap student, I was expelled from school for a week and the kid wasn't punished. And it's not like nobody saw 7 kids, so the kid start to attack me and told the school. But all of a sudden the school said that you show old co-ntr all your raggy ass. People that always moan about toxic or hateful people, while doing the same stuff themselves and can't handle when it's pointed out. My religion. Got into depression because of it. Don't worry, I recovered in 2013 after I left it. There was continual preaching of love and being non-judgmental, which is what a typical religion does, I guess. However, because they felt that they were the one religion to rule them all, children and teenagers growing up the religion were validated left and right to have the mindset this religion had. On one side it's great to be surrounded with that much support, but on the flip side when the real world hits them at around 18 and they're with college and whatnot, that validation gets challenged. Because of that, they carry the superiority complex over others who don't share the same values as they do. I've seen continual times where the church supports loving others, but then the cheek turns and they judge those who do tattoo piercings, alcohol drinking, and then it even goes to trivial things like rated R movies, feeling right in every argument, or holding grudges. I justified to myself for 6 years straight, oh, it's just one person out of the religion and it doesn't mean they're all like that. It became a daily trouble for me, and eventually I wore myself out mentally and pushed myself into depression about it. I realized it wasn't the religion itself but organized religion I wasn't a fan of. I got depressed, left the religion, and 6 months later I recovered. Yeah, not a fan of hypocrisy and conflict within organizations like those. When some Christians use Bible verses for an argument, but when someone brings up a questionable Bible verse they say it's not supposed to be taken literally and that times have changed. My sister once accidentally bumped our dad's car door against a bin and he nearly lost his mind. Then when dad bumped his car door he just said accidents happen. Like, really? This definitely isn't the most, but it's something I thought about the other day. When people, typically women, get mad at their SO, typically men, for playing video games while they are on their phones on social media for 8 hours of the day. I see you girl reposting Facebook memes all day. The problem isn't the amount of time spent on it, it's when they start neglecting their partner for video games phones. Bo-Katan. Mayo Mando, you stupid zealot following stupid ancient rules. Mando, here's your black sword. Bo-Katan, I can't. The ancient rules forbid it. It's not that it was forbidden. It just wouldn't mean anything. Moff Gideon outright said it. The sword itself has no power. What matters is the story. Din took the dark saber by force. No matter who actually holds the weapon, he is the Mandalore. My brother wouldn't let his kids go to school because of COVID, but they went to hockey practice and games. All 3 got COVID. Currently have the same issue with my parents. They don't let me and my siblings go to school, but both my parents go out almost every day because of date night, or they go out to eat without us. But they say we can't go to school cause we are gonna get infected, but they ended up giving us COVID. Celebrities and politicians telling everyone to stay home while they don't have to obey the rules and don't have to worry about feeding their families, losing their job, became homeless etc. Catholics wagging their pious fingers at what they deem immoral while pedophiles have been running rampant and unchecked in their own houses of worship. LOL, they don't go unchecked. They get shuffled around to avoid the law. They are checked, given a thumbs up, protected, and hidden. The US Congress taking recess after recess and earning more than $100k while forcing millions of citizens out of their jobs and taking months to decide to toss them a token of $600. Members of my Congress impeaching a guy for lying about a blowjob, them turning around and supporting an aspiring despot. Feminists saying to stop body shaming and then when you say anything they disagree on they say stuff like you have small dong energy. I saw a post about a girl saying when his height starts with 5 feet. The guy responding to her said when her weight starts with 3 and was removed and banned from the site. You know, like equality does. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.